Hey there, and welcome. Have you ever looked at your paycheck or maybe your bank account and just felt like there are these invisible forces at play, secretly moving your money around? Well, you're not wrong. Today, we're going to pull back that curtain and demystify the basic financial concepts that you absolutely need to know. So let's start by looking at that feeling just a little bit closer.
This quote just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? You work hard all month, you see that impressive number on your pay stub, and then, poof, it feels like a pretty big chunk of it just vanishes into thin air. It's that universal sting of seeing a much smaller number hit your bank account than you were expecting.
Right. That's the million-dollar question we're tackling today. We're going to follow the money, from the second you earn it to all the forces that shrink it, the ones that can grow it, and, what ultimately gives it value in the first place. It's time to meet these so-called invisible forces head on.
Okay, let's start with a moment I think we can all remember pretty vividly, getting that first real paycheck. You're so excited, you're picturing all the amazing things you can finally buy, and then you look at the actual deposit. That's your first run-in with the biggest invisible force of them all, taxes.
This chart really just says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly visualizes that initial shock. You earned $2,000, but your bank account only sees about $1,450. So where did the rest of it go? Well, it gets sliced up and sent to a few different places: federal income tax, state tax, Social Security, Medicare. Think of each slice as a different invisible force, and each one has a very specific job to do.
So what are we actually paying for with all this money? Well, to put it simply, taxes are the cost of civilization. It's the money we all chip in for the society we live in. The roads we drive on, the schools our kids go to, and even the health inspectors that make sure your favorite taco truck is safe to eat at. It's basically the price we pay to have an organized, functioning society.
All right, so after the government takes its share, what do you do with what's left over? For most of us, we put it in a bank. But what a bank actually does with your money, well, that introduces a whole new set of invisible forces. Let's dig into that.
A lot of people kind of picture banks as these giant, impenetrable vaults, just guarding huge stacks of cash. But that's not really how it works. A much better way to think of a bank is as a financial matchmaker. Their whole job is to connect people who have extra money they want to save with people who need money to borrow.
So here's a super simple breakdown of how that matchmaking actually happens. First, you deposit your paycheck. Now, the bank is legally required to keep a small fraction of that on hand. But then, and this is the really key part, they lend the rest of it out to someone else who wants to, say, buy a car or maybe a new jet ski. The bank makes its money by charging a fee on that loan. And that fee is what we call interest.
I love this way of thinking about interest. It's basically rent for money. It's money's way of charging you for using it. So if you borrow money, you pay interest as the price for getting to use it right now. But if you're saving money, you earn interest as a little reward for letting someone else use your money for a while. It really is the engine that powers the whole banking system. But, and this is a big but, not all interest is created equal. You've got simple interest, which is really straightforward. It's just a flat fee. But then you have compound interest. And that, my friends, is where things get really, really powerful. It's when your interest starts earning its own interest. All those little clones start making their own money, creating this incredible snowball effect of exponential growth. And this brings us to probably the most important thing you need to understand about interest. It can either be your absolute best friend or your worst enemy. There's really no in between. When you're paying high compound interest, like on a credit card, a simple $12 burrito can quickly balloon into a $50 regret. But when you're earning compound interest through savings or investments, well, it becomes your best employee, working 24/7 to make you more money. It's like a cheat code for your finances. Okay, now let's zoom out a bit. Beyond your personal paycheck and your bank account, there are these huge economy-wide forces that affect everybody's money. And the two biggest ones you'll always hear about are inflation and recessions.
Have you ever noticed how a bag of chips just seems to get more expensive every single year? Or maybe the bag is the same price, but there are way fewer chips inside? Yeah, that's inflation in a nutshell. It's this slow, quiet erosion of your money's buying power. Your $5 bill is still technically a $5 bill, but over time, it just doesn't stretch as far as it used to.
And then there's the economic cycle. A really easy way to think about it is like a party. You have the boom phase, where the party is raging, everything's great, the economy is growing. Then you hit the peak, which is like when the lights flicker and you realize reality is about to hit. This is often followed by the bust. That's a recession. Companies cut back, jobs might be lost. It's a painful part of the cycle, for sure. But it's always followed by a reset and a period of slow rebuilding.
So, up until now, we've mostly talked about forces that just kind of happen to your money. But now let's shift gears and talk about the tools you can use to proactively manage your finances. It's all about learning the rules of the game, and that really starts with your financial report card, your credit score.
Honestly, your credit score is probably one of the most misunderstood numbers in all of personal finance. It is not a measure of how rich you are. It's a measure of how reliable you are. When a lender looks at your score, they're really just asking one simple question. If I lend you this money, can I trust you to pay it back? That's it.
So how is that trustworthiness actually measured? Well, it pretty much comes down to these 5 main things. The biggest one by far is your payment history. I mean, it's simple. Do you pay your bills on time? But they also look at how much of your available credit you're using, how long you've had your accounts, the different types of credit you have, and how often you're applying for new stuff. Each little piece helps tell your financial story.
This analogy is it's funny, and it's also painfully true. If you ignore your credit score, it can make your life so much more difficult and expensive. But if you take care of it, it becomes this incredibly powerful asset that can help you do all the big things, like buying a car or even a house.
Hey, remember that silent money eater we talked about, inflation? Well, the single most effective way to fight back against it is by investing. This is how you completely turn the tables. Instead of just trading your time for money, investing is about making your money go to work for you, generating more money all on its own.
And getting started doesn't have to be some big, intimidating thing. The main options are actually pretty straightforward. You can buy stocks, which are basically just tiny little ownership slices of a company. You can buy bonds, which are essentially loans you make to a government or a big corporation. You can invest in funds, which are like prepackaged baskets of different stocks and bonds. Or, of course, you can invest in physical property through real estate.
So we've covered a lot of the how of finance. But for this last part, let's talk about the why. Because to truly understand money, we have to look at the huge ideas that hold everything up, what things like money, value, and wealth truly represent.
Okay, this one might be a bit of a mind-bender, but it is absolutely fundamental. A dollar bill is just a piece of paper. It has no real inherent value. The only reason it has value is because all of us, as a society, have collectively agreed to accept it in exchange for goods and services. It's a social construct that's built entirely on shared trust.
And this whole idea of shared belief applies to value itself. I mean, why can one handbag cost 100 times more than another one, even if they both just carry your stuff? It's because value is largely based on perception. If enough people believe something is valuable, whether it's a famous brand or a rare piece of art, then it becomes valuable in the marketplace. It's that simple.
And that brings us to our final and maybe our most important point. We get so focused on money, but the most valuable asset any of us will ever have is our time. You can always lose money and make it back again, but time, that only moves in one direction. True, lasting wealth is built by patiently investing over decades. So the real question isn't just about how you're investing your money, but how are you investing your most precious and finite resource, your time.